You know what's weird? Most traders can handle losing money. They'll blow through account after account, lose thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars, and keep coming back for more. But the moment they start actually making consistent profits, something breaks inside them. They freeze up. They second guess everything. Some even sabotage themselves back to zero. I've watched it happen dozens of times, and honestly, it's one of the most fascinating psychological puzzles in trading. So today we're going to dig into why success in trading actually terrifies people more than failure ever could. Let me tell you about a trader named Marcus. Real guy. Changed his name for privacy. Marcus spent 3 years losing money. He tried every strategy you can imagine. He blew up 4 different accounts. His wife was ready to divorce him over it. Then something clicked. He found a simple breakout system that worked for his personality. For the first time ever, he strung together 8 winning weeks in a row. He was up 42% on the year. Everything he dreamed about was finally happening. And then he just stopped trading. Completely stopped. When I asked him why, he said he couldn't explain it. He just felt this overwhelming sense of dread every time he went to place a trade. This isn't rare. Research from trading psychology experts shows that roughly 60% of traders who achieve their first period of sustained profitability experience what's called success anxiety. That's a real thing. It's not made up. And it destroys more trading careers than bad risk management ever could. Here's what nobody tells you about failure. Failure is comfortable. I know that sounds insane, but stick with me. When you're losing money in the markets, you know exactly who you are. You're the person trying to make it work. You're the underdog. You're learning. You're growing. There's actually zero pressure on you because, hey, you haven't figured it out yet. Society gives you a pass. Your friends and family expect you to lose money trading because that's what most people do. You fit into a box that makes sense to everyone, including yourself. But success changes everything. Suddenly, you're the person who actually did it. You're the 1%. And now there are expectations. Your own brain starts asking questions you've never had to answer before. Can you do it again? Was it just luck? What if you lose it all now? What if people find out you're not as good as your results suggest? The weight of those questions can be absolutely crushing. There's a concept in psychology called impostor syndrome. You've probably heard of it. It's that feeling that you're a fraud, that you don't deserve your success, that eventually everyone will figure out you just got lucky. Studies show that impostor syndrome affects up to 70% of people at some point in their lives. But in trading, it hits different because in trading, you can actually test whether you're a fraud or not. Every single day, every single trade, the market gives you immediate feedback about whether you belong or not. When you're failing at trading, imposter syndrome doesn't really touch you. You can't be an imposter if you're not pretending to be successful. But the moment you start making money, that voice in your head starts whispering, you didn't really earn this. The market just happened to move your way. Your strategy won't work in different conditions. You're going to give it all back. And here's the really messed up part. That voice is trying to protect you. Your brain is literally trying to save you from the pain of losing your newfound status. Let me explain how the brain processes success versus failure. When you lose a trade, your amygdala lights up. That's the fear center of your brain. You feel bad, sure, but it's a familiar kind of bad. Your brain has protocols for dealing with loss. It's been doing it since you were a kid and didn't get picked for the team or failed a test. Loss is painful, but it's known pain. Your nervous system knows how to process it, move through it, and reset. But sustained success activates completely different neural pathways. Your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for planning and self-image, goes into overdrive. It starts running simulations. What does this mean for your future? How do you maintain this? What's your new identity? And here's the kicker. Your brain hates uncertainty more than it hates pain. It would rather have certain pain than uncertain success. At least with certain pain, you know what you're dealing with. There's actual research backing this up. A study from the University of Cambridge found that the stress hormone cortisol spikes higher in traders during periods of profit than during periods of loss. Read that again. Traders are literally more stressed when they're winning than when they're losing. The researchers found that this happens because winning creates what they call anticipatory anxiety. Your brain starts worrying about protecting those gains, about what happens if the winning streak ends, about whether you can keep performing at this level. Now let's talk about identity. This is where things get really deep. Every person has a self-concept, a story they tell themselves about who they are. For most struggling traders, that story goes something like this. I'm someone who's working hard to crack the code. I'm determined. I'm persistent. I haven't made it yet, but I will. That's a comfortable identity. It requires nothing but effort and hope. But when you actually start succeeding, that entire identity has to die. You can't be the underdog anymore. You can't be the person who's trying to figure it out. You have to become someone new. You have to become the person who succeeded. And that transformation is terrifying because you don't know how to be that person yet. You've spent months or years being the struggling trader. That's familiar territory. Success is uncharted waters. I've talked to profitable traders who actually miss the struggle struggle. They miss the simplicity of just trying to survive. They miss having that clear goal of just getting to profitability. Because once you're profitable, the question becomes, now what? How much is enough? When can you relax? Should you scale up? What if you scale up and lose it all? These questions don't have clear answers, and that ambiguity creates massive psychological pressure. There's also this thing called the responsibility of success. When you're losing money, you're only responsible for yourself. Maybe you're disappointing your spouse or your family, but you're not managing anyone else's expectations about your trading. But once you're successful, everything changes. Suddenly, people want to know your secret. They want you to teach them. They start looking at you differently. Some get jealous. Some get inspired. Some start depending on you financially if you're trading for a living. All of that is weight you never had to carry when you were just another struggling trader. Research in behavioral economics shows that humans experience loss aversion at a ratio of about 2 to 1. That means the pain of losing $100 is roughly twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining $100. But here's what's wild. When you've already made significant profits, that ratio gets even more extreme. The fear of losing your gains becomes 3 times, sometimes 4 times stronger than the original fear of just losing money. You're not just afraid of going back to zero. You're afraid of proving that you never deserved the success in the first place. Let me give you a concrete example of how this plays out. Say you build your account from $10,000 to $30,000 over 6 months. That's a 200% return. That's incredible. Most hedge funds would kill for those numbers. But now you've got $20,000 of profit sitting there. Every trade you take risks not just your original capital, but your newfound identity as a successful trader. If you hit a normal drawdown of 15%, you're not just losing $4,500. You're losing proof that you belong in the winner's circle. Your brain interprets that potential loss as an existential threat. This is why so many traders start trading smaller when they become profitable. It seems backwards, right? You finally figured it out, so you should size up and make more money. But instead, traders shrink their position sizes. They start taking fewer trades. They become ultra-conservative. They're trying to protect not just their capital, but their fragile new identity as someone who can actually do this. The trading industry doesn't help with any of this. Everywhere you look, you see people flashing their wins on social media. You see sports cars and luxury watches and screenshots of massive gains. The industry has created this mythology that successful traders are fearless, that they're always confident, that they never doubt themselves. So when you finally start making money and you're terrified, you think something's wrong with you. You think you're the only one who feels this way. You're not. Pretty much every honest, successful trader I've ever talked to has been through this exact experience. There's another layer to this that most people don't consider. Success in trading is often random at first. You might stumble onto a strategy that works really well in current market conditions. You might catch a trending market that suits your style. You might just get lucky for a few weeks. And your rational brain knows this. Your rational brain understands that a small sample size doesn't prove anything. So even when you're making money, part of you is waiting for the other shoe to drop. Part of you is convinced that this is temporary, that you're just in the right place at the right time, and that eventually your luck will run out. That's actually not entirely wrong. Market conditions do change. Strategies that work in one environment often stop working in another. But the successful traders are the ones who've built robust systems and developed real skill. The problem is you can't know for sure if you're actually skilled or just lucky until you've traded through multiple market cycles. And that takes years. So you're stuck in this psychological purgatory where you're making money, but you can't fully trust it. You can't relax into it. You're always waiting for it to fall apart. Let's talk about what happens in your body during all of this. When you're in a state of chronic success anxiety, your nervous system is stuck in what's called sympathetic activation. That's fight or flight mode. Your cortisol stays elevated. Your heart rate variability decreases. Your sleep quality deteriorates. You might start having digestive issues. You might get headaches. Your body is literally treating your trading success as a threat. And here's the cruel irony. That physiological stress makes you a worse trader. It clouds your judgment. It makes you more impulsive. It disrupts your ability to follow your rules. So the very fear that you'll lose your success actually increases the chances that you will. Some traders respond to success anxiety by completely changing their approach. They abandon the strategy that made them profitable because they convince themselves it won't keep working. They start over-optimizing, searching for the perfect system that will guarantee continued success. They fall down rabbit holes of indicators and algorithms and complexity. All of this is just a way to avoid the fundamental terror of having something good and possibly losing it. Other traders do the opposite. They become rigid and superstitious. If they made money trading in a certain chair, wearing certain clothes, or following an exact routine, they become obsessed with replicating those conditions perfectly. They turn trading into a ritual because rituals create the illusion of control. If you you do everything exactly right, the thinking goes, you can force the market to keep rewarding you. Of course, that's not how markets work. But the brain doesn't care about market mechanics when it's trying to manage existential anxiety. Here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. Success isolates you. When you're struggling, you can commiserate with other struggling traders. You can share war stories. You can support each other. There's genuine community in shared struggle. But when you start making money, that community often falls apart. Other struggling traders don't want to hear about your problems. They think you're humble bragging, and you can't really connect with them anymore because your challenges are different now. Meanwhile, you haven't yet found your tribe of consistently profitable traders, so you end up alone with your fears, which makes everything worse. The comparison trap also intensifies with success. When you're losing money, you're at the bottom. There's nowhere to compare yourself except up. But once you're profitable, suddenly you're comparing yourself to everyone above you. You made 20% this year. Great. But that guy on Twitter made 50%. That hedge fund made 80%. No matter how well you do, there's always someone doing better. And your brain latches onto that as evidence that you're not good enough. You went from comparing yourself to other losers, which felt manageable, to comparing yourself to the entire spectrum of traders, which is overwhelming. There's also the paradox of choice that comes with success. When you're broke or barely surviving, your choice is simple. Keep trading or quit. But when you're profitable, suddenly you have options. Should you go full-time? Should you manage other people's money? Should you start a fund? Should you teach? Should you scale up or play it safe? Every option comes with risk. Every choice could be the wrong one. And the more you think about it, the more paralyzed you become. Some traders call this analysis paralysis. I call it the tyranny of possibilities. Having too many good options can be just as debilitating as having no options at all. Let me tell you what the research says about overcoming this. Psychologists who specialize in performance anxiety have found that the most effective approach is something called cognitive reframing. Instead of seeing success as something fragile that you have to protect, you learn to see it as evidence of competence that you're building. Instead of asking, can I keep this up? You start asking, what can I learn from this phase? The shift is subtle but powerful. One mindset keeps you stuck in fear. The other keeps you growing. There's also significant value in what's called process orientation versus outcome orientation. Traders who focus solely on results, on the profit and loss, tend to experience more success anxiety because results are ultimately outside your control. You can take a perfect trade and lose money. You can take a terrible trade and make money. If your self-worth is tied to outcomes, you're going to be on an emotional roller coaster. But traders who focus on process, on executing their plan regardless of results, tend to have more stable psychology. They can feel successful even during drawdowns because they're measuring success by adherence to their rules, not by dollar amounts. The most successful traders I know have all developed what I call emotional flexibility. They've learned to hold contradictory truths at the same time. They can acknowledge that yes, their recent success might partly be luck, and also yes, they've developed real skills. They can feel both proud of their achievements and humble about what they don't know. They can enjoy their profits while also staying hungry to improve. That kind of nuanced thinking doesn't come naturally. It takes practice, but it's the difference between traders who sustain success and traders who flame out after their first taste of it. Here's what really helps. Community, but the right kind. Not the fake guru community. Not the hype-driven social media community. I'm talking about authentic connections with other traders who are on a similar journey. People you can be honest with about your fears. People who won't judge you for being scared when you're winning. Those relationships are incredibly rare in trading, but they're also incredibly valuable because when you can voice your fears to someone who gets it, those fears lose a lot of their power. Some traders benefit from working with a trading psychologist or performance coach. And I'm not talking about some scammer selling confidence courses. I mean actual licensed psychologists who understand both trading and performance anxiety. They can help you identify the specific thought patterns that are sabotaging you. They can teach you techniques for managing your nervous system. They can hold space for you to process the identity shift that comes with success. It's not weakness to get help with this stuff. It's actually one of the smartest investments a profitable trader can make. The other thing that helps is redefining what success means to you. Most traders start with this idea that success means making a lot of money. And sure, money is part of it. But if that's your only definition, you're setting yourself up for a lifetime of anxiety because there's always more money to make. There's no finish line. But if you define success as becoming the kind of trader who can navigate any market condition, who can manage risk effectively, who can stay calm under pressure, then success becomes about development instead of destination. And that's a lot easier to sustain psychologically. Let me bring this back to Marcus, the trader I mentioned at the beginning. After he stopped trading for 3 months, he finally started having conversations with other profitable traders. He realized he wasn't broken. He was just going through a normal psychological transition that almost nobody talks about. He started working with a sports psychologist who helped him develop pre-trade routines for managing his anxiety. He redefined his goals around consistency and process instead of just profits, and slowly he got back to trading. He's been profitable for 2 years now. He still feels anxious sometimes, but he's learned to trade with the anxiety instead of waiting for it to disappear. The truth is, success anxiety in trading probably never fully goes away. Even traders with decades of experience still feel it sometimes. The difference is they've learned not to let it stop them. They've learned that feeling scared doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. Sometimes it just means you're doing something that matters. And trading, when you're actually good at it, matters. It's your livelihood. It's your identity. It's your proof to yourself that you can master something difficult. Of course you're going to feel protective of that. Of course you're going to feel scared of losing it. The question isn't how to eliminate the fear. The question is how to move forward despite the fear. And that comes down to building systems that work even when you're anxious. It comes down to trusting your process more than your emotions. It comes down to accepting that uncertainty is part of the game and you're never going to have complete control. The market is going to do what it's going to do. All you can control is how you show up, how you manage your risk, and how you respond to whatever happens. So if you're experiencing success in your trading and it's scaring the hell out of you, first of all, congratulations. You're part of a very small group. Second, know that what you're feeling is completely normal. It doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're going to lose it all. It just means you're human. Your brain is trying to protect you from loss in the only way it knows how, by making you afraid. Thank your brain for trying, and then trade anyway. Focus on your process. Stick to your rules. Build those neural pathways that prove to your nervous system that you can handle success. And find people who understand what you're going through so you don't have to carry this alone. Because the only thing scarier than success is letting the fear of success rob you of everything you've worked for.